everyone. Jedediah Thomas, the Mind Master here. So today I really wanted to actually kind of talk about my own journey, kind of, going from completely broken a couple years ago, like not able to function at all, going through unbelievable terror, pain, suffering from the traumas that I was in, and then also having my mind kind of broken from limiting beliefs and then all of the spiritual stuff that I've worked on as well, and now working towards my true self, right? Because that's really the ultimate goal of my work is to help people become their true selves, and I'm on that journey as well, right? Like every layer I peel off, everything I fix, everything I remove, I just get closer and closer and closer to that eventual goal. And I have some very profound testimonials from clients, and I have really good outcomes and results and stories and all of this stuff. But you don't really necessarily kind of see the journey as it's happening, right? You just kind of see the before and you see the after. But what does it actually look like to go through this journey of healing and you know in a lot more detail, right? So with trauma, I've experienced this very much. Probably the most common thing that people say when I remove a trauma is they feel like this burden is coming off of them, right? Like they feel light, like this heaviness that existed kind of imperceptibly to them has been completely lifted and completely removed. And I've experienced that as well with removing traumas that I had. And it's kind of interesting because your mind is really well adapted to create a baseline, right? To create kind of like homeostasis. So in the first couple days after you remove a trauma, you just feel like, oh my gosh, life is absolutely amazing. I've finally gotten rid of that trauma. Oh my gosh, life can be so good now, right? And then once it kind of realizes that that trauma is no longer part of your existence, it starts to look at the other traumas that you have, right? So you kind of stop feeling this kind of general feeling of euphoria, and you kind of get back to quote unquote reality, and you start to see, okay, there's other stuff I need to fix. Like I'm never going to have a problem with that trauma that got removed ever again, but there's a whole lot of other stuff I need to work on, right? And so you kind of get back to um like kind of rationally looking at, okay, I'm not where I want to be. I still need things that need to be healed. um you could really tell the change at first, and then after a few days you don't even realize that you were kind of worse off than you are now, right? And that's kind of how it's happened with me, how it's happened with pretty much everybody, is that I know every time I remove a trauma, I just feel better. I feel better. I feel better. I feel better. And then in a few days, I feel normal. What There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's okay to feel normal. And like I don't necessarily feel all of the incremental changes, but when I look back 2 years ago, right, of all the trauma that I had, I can't even imagine being in the level of pain that I was in. I don't know how I got through it, right? Like I don't know how I survived through the things that I went through, and all of that pain is just being removed as I've worked on myself over the last couple of years with my methodology. And it's incomparable, right? Even though I don't feel that different each time, it's kind of like you're climbing a mountain, right? You're climbing, you're climbing, you're climbing. It just feels like, okay, the mountain is never ending. It's just one step in front of you, and then you stop for a rest and you look back and you're like, holy cow, right? I've come a really long way. And that's kind of how it feels with removing all of that trauma. um I'm completely different person than I was a couple of years ago. Not that, I've changed my personality, or I've, change anything like fundamental about who I am, but I'm more able to access who I am, right? Who I was buried underneath all of that stuff that had been, put on me from not really great individuals. And so it's like in one sense, I know I'm better off than I've been ever in my life. And in another sense, it's like, um, I don't even know where I was going with that. It's like I know that I was underneath all of that and I just could never actually get to it. You know what I mean? And so every trauma that I remove, I just become more and more and more and more me. And there's not all of these things that are pulling me in ways that I don't want to be, if that makes sense. So that's kind of like my experience of removing traumas, and I'm sure there's probably a few that I still have that I'm finding every once in a while. Sometimes it gets a little bit difficult to find them as you go along because then they're no longer emotional, right? So then you kind of have to look at behavioral patterns. You have to look at kind of more oblique things to see them and then fix them. But I'm sure at some point I probably don't have more than 15 or 20 left, right? So however long it takes me to find those, then basically done. I'm completely trauma free at that point, and that will be really huge. Now, as far as the limiting belief side, and I'll just kind of repeat this because when I use the word belief, it's not what normal people use when they say beliefs, right? I'm working on a very fundamental part of the mind that nobody knows about. And beliefs are one of those things where I couldn't actually change my own beliefs because we're wired to not be able to do that, right? I couldn't see them, I couldn't change them. So I actually had to train someone else in my methodology for like 6 or 8 months to actually then work on me and help me fix that layer of my mind. And with belief changes, it's like it's not an emotional change too much, right? Unless it's like a super emotional negative belief, but it's very much like a cognitive change, right? So you feel light, but it's not like a light of burden, like a weight coming off. It's like a lightning bolt just kind of like shoots through your mind, and you just like everything opens up and you're like, wow, I see now for the first time, right? Like I can use my mind for the first time. I can actually process things. I can think about things that I couldn't think about before. I can approach subjects that were basically off limits to my mind before, and it's just like completely unlocking my mental ability. And those changes have been incredibly significant. So if you see some of the kind of the under the sea videos that I did around that time when I was getting my beliefs shifted, a lot of my beliefs were around my learning ability, right? My ability to read, my ability to process information, and it was like the gears were grinding and they couldn't turn, right? And now it's like zoom, now I can just like process information like crazy, and there was no um, there was no methodological difference with how I study, or I didn't like learn how to learn or anything like that. It's just literally like there were blocks in my mind that I couldn't get past that were breaking my entire mental system, and now those are gone, and I can actually my cognitive ability is just skyrocket as a result of that. And that's really helped me out in a lot of areas. Now, so that's kind of like, the standard to like kind of like the most normal methodologies that I would use on someone. And then there's kind of like more of the spiritual side of things. And I have, a bunch of methodologies for that as well. One of the most curious things, well, I would say it's the most curious thing I work on is imprints. And literally nothing about them makes sense. Like it's like the most bizarre thing. It doesn't make sense why they exist. It doesn't make sense how they come about. It doesn't make sense why I can fix them and nobody else can. And like it doesn't make sense why they can affect your reality, but they do. And on myself, gosh, I would say between 50 and 70, if like on a conservative level that I've actually removed from myself. And what those things are is basically an energy signature from someone else that attaches to you. And I figured out how to fix them, right? It's what the Hindus would call karma. It's what you might call bad luck, or you might call like the evil eye or something like that, or something that attaches to you from other people. And you don't really know that they're there until you like your reality just keeps getting screwed up in the same way over and over and over again. And then you kind of get a hint. It's like there's got to be something causing that that's not normal, right? There's some kind of force working against you. There's some kind of like bad luck that's happening through no fault of your own, right? It's like you do everything the right way and just like it's a crap show, right? And that was kind of like things that I had experienced very often. And so when I remove imprints, because I remove so many, I've removed more from myself than I have from, all of my clients combined. And, I've probably removed, 20 or 30 or 40 from them, between all of them. And it's like you feel that there's something attached to you. You can't quite understand what it is or why it's there, but just when I remove it, it dissolves. It just feels like your energy field opens up, and it feels like your reality changes, and it does, right? Like literally, um, when I remove imprints, the result in people's reality is immediate. Like these things actually affect the real world, how you're perceived, how you perceive the world, and how the world reacts to you. And I know that sounds completely like, witchcraft or, insanity or something, but it's the reality of the situation. And they're extremely prolific. Like if you have one, you probably have several dozen, is kind of what I've seen from the people that I've worked on. So your reality could basically be affected in so many ways that you're not aware of. And just removing all of that from me, feeling my reality changed when I remove those imprints. Just feeling like, okay, so when I first discovered these things was actually one of my clients, um, against all ethics and common sense and whatever, tried to do a shift on me against my will. And they actually transferred probably about a dozen, maybe even a couple dozen of their imprints onto me. And so it's like immediately I just became like super negative, and it's just like totally broke my mind. Like I couldn't do anything for like 6 months. And it was ridiculous, and I had to like figure out what happened, right? Because it didn't make sense. It wasn't part of the belief shift that they attempted to do on me. It was like some other thing attached to me, and that's kind of how I figured this out. Um, and so just being able to remove all of that, like all of this, it's like goo or stuff that just gets stuck to you, and you're just able to just get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. It's not part of you. It's not supposed to be there. And just feeling like the energies are opening up, you're receiving more energies, you're able to give more energies, and everything is just functioning in a more normal way that's just you. And that's it's kind of difficult to describe unless you actually experience it. And until you experience it, you probably think I'm, talking, crazy talk, but it's literally a repeatable thing that I'm working with. So that's on the imprint side. And then recently I came up with this new methodology of shifting identities, and that's ridiculously powerful. So basically it's like you have this negative energy that you identify with, and I can actually shift that energy, and you become energetically like a new identity. And that's very difficult to describe unless you've experienced it. Very similar to that. It's not a mental exercise. It's like a complete energetic shift of who you are. And that is massively powerful. From just experiencing it on myself. It's like you kind of become a new person, a better version of yourself instantly. And from what I've seen in my experience, it's permanent, and it just completely just um it's like going to a car wash for your soul, I guess. Is kind of what it feels like. You just like whoosh, right? You just get this wash, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm clean now, right? So that's really awesome. As far as some of the, more deeper spiritual stuff, man, as part of receiving imprints, right? Like I received some nastier stuff as well, that was like actively malicious and trying to thwart me. And like it's crazy to think that these things exist, right? Like it just sounds so insane. Like if I hadn't experienced it myself, I would write myself off as insane, if that makes sense. The spiritual world is so powerful and so prevalent, and nobody really knows what it is, how to navigate it, how to, manipulate that, kind of, I don't know what even to call it, like level of reality, energy field, whatever. And I kind of stumbled into that, and I just had to fix all of the problems that got transferred to me. And so then I learned how to fix it. But most people can't even go so far as admitting that there is a spiritual world because they don't believe in physics, right? Like they're in like some kind of medieval dark age, understanding of science, and thinking that, gravity is the source of everything, and they have no grasp of science whatsoever. And then other people that do acknowledge the spiritual world, but they kind of look at it through a very woo-woo lens, and they think it's all emotional, and they think there's, other dimensions and all of this stuff, and that's not reality either, right? They've gone totally off the deep end on the other direction. And then you have like religious people that, okay, yeah, they have some of the basics of the spiritual world figured out, but then they put their kind of like twist on it that deforms it and makes it some into something that it's not, and then they become, very often evil as a result. So it's kind of like, um, basically what I'm getting at here, because I'm talking about my own journey, is that you can't even fathom the differences, right? Because like if you have imprints on you, like you can't even imagine what it's like to not have them. You can't even imagine what it's like if you have received a curse, or if you have demons attached to you or whatever. Like you can't even know that it's there. It's so difficult for you to see, and then like you can't even imagine what life is like without all of that stuff attached to you. And like I said, again, I know it sounds crazy, right? But that's the reality of it, is these things do exist, and they do attach to you, and they do affect you mentally, they affect you emotionally, they affect your reality, they affect, the people around you. And you could be living a completely very low level life compared to what you should be living, because of these things are affecting you, right? Not only just, your thought processes, your decision making, your ability to take action, your ability to perceive the world, but actually how the world responds to you, right? And there's nothing in, traditional modern science that can account for the fact that your reality can change based on these things attaching to you, right? They come up with all these like crazy theories of like, quantum physics, and all this interdimensional stuff that's not reality. And like it's like everyone is looking at the wrong thing, and they just can't see what reality is. And then me having experienced not only like the worst of it, but also being able to heal through that, the words truly cannot describe the difference, right? Like I'm absolutely, if I saw myself 2 years ago, now I couldn't even recognize myself, how healed I've become because of how bad off I was. So this is probably a more esoteric video for most people, but it is my experience, and it's going to be hard for a lot of people to really get past their ego and understand the reality that there is a spiritual world. There are things affecting you that you can't um, perceive with your normal senses. There are things that affect your reality. Um, there are traumas that you don't know you have. There are beliefs that you don't know that you have, and it's affecting your reality so much. And everything that you're doing to fix your situation or yourself or your mind or your this or that is really a symptom of all of these things that are happening. Yeah. And I'm not saying that that's everything, right? Because you still have to, have skills, and you have to, put in effort and action and all of this stuff. But like, just because you're doing the right things, just because you're thinking in the right way, just because you know the right stuff, doesn't mean that this stuff is not affecting you, right? Because if you think, even rich people, right, even wealthy people, they have emotional issues, they have things affecting them, they have they might make a lot of money and then lose it all of a sudden, and it seems like this random chance or this bad luck or something. Well, there might actually be a cause to that. And not only am I very well versed in what all of those things are, but I can actually fix them. And not to boast or anything, but I have never seen anyone be able to fix the things that I can fix, much less know that they exist, right? Because everyone, like I said, has this kind of idea of what reality is that's not actually reality, so they don't see the things that I see. So hopefully this is enlightening for you. This is my own personal journey of having gone from, basically, I was so broken a couple years ago. It was about 7 years ago. No, was it 7 years ago? Actually, geez, it was about probably like 10 years ago now. And that's how time flies. But I was so broken, I was so traumatized, I was like staring at a wall for weeks at a time. And basically, it took me a very long time to figure out how to fix this stuff, because nobody else could. And then, going through my own healing journey, getting to where I am now, and then knowing that, I still have, maybe a few more months of working on myself, to get to that point where there's literally nothing affecting me at all. I'm completely 100% myself. I have complete freedom, complete free will. I have complete agency over everything, because there's nothing subconscious, there's nothing spiritual, there's nothing emotional, there's nothing mental pulling me outside of me, right? And then at some point, I'll become 100% my true self. And then who knows what I can accomplish, right? And that's kind of the journey, right? It's not overnight. It does take time. There's layers and layers and layers. And you think you fix something, and then okay, there's another layer, and there's another layer, and that's just how life is. That's how the mind is. That's how reality is. But if we work with each other long enough, we can work through all those layers, and get you, um, if not 100% your true self, definitely closer than anybody else could possibly get you. And that's what it's like to work with me. So thank you for watching. I'll see you on the channel. Check out my free group on Facebook. Be sure to answer the questions, and I'll let you in. And otherwise, just, stay on the channel and, keep following. Thanks for watching. Bye.